Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abasi. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai, all our viewers. I think we start with oil. Still on the up and up, but paring back its gains a little bit. Brent crude at $70.92. West Texas at 65. I think U.S. crude inventories rose in the last week or so. But then there's still the overarching issue of the U.S.-Iran talks. So we talked about this earlier in the week. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is going to be meeting U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff today in Geneva to talk further about the the desire for the United States for Iran not to produce another nuclear weapon. Even though President Trump said last June after the missile strikes that they were obliterated. Marco Rubio, who is in the Caribbean right now, I think he was reacting to that Cuba thing that happened off the coast there with that Florida boat that was shut down. Here he is saying that, this was I think early this morning or yesterday, that Iran still refuses to talk about its ballistic missiles, I think.
But it's also important to remember that Iran refuses to talk about the ballistic missiles to us or to anyone, and that's a big problem.
So is there going to be any improvement in that going forward? Remember, the U.S. has amassed this large arsenal of warships and so on in the Middle Eastern region in order to try to compel Iran to come to the table. So, again, we'll see how that turns out, but that's where oil is. Asian markets were mixed in trading. Japan briefly touched a record of 59,000 points, but then eased back a little bit. I understand there's some new board members on the Bank of Japan who are kind of in line with Takeichi's dovish stance, so that kind of gave a bit of a boost to stocks. But look at the Kospi. I mean, 3.6% jump. Again, the same players, SK Hynix, Samsung, who happen to both be customers, customers of Nvidia, right? So, we saw chip stocks making the jump. And I think even the ASX 200 in Australia also hitting a record as well. So, but yeah, China and the others are down. So here it is. I mean, Nvidia, they just continue to make money. They knocked it out of the park again. So fourth quarter revenues coming in at 68.1 billion. That was 73% gain. They look at the data center revenues, and this is the cash cow for Nvidia in the same way the iPhone is the cash cow for Apple. 62.3 billion. So take 62.3 billion as a percentage of overall revenues of 68. That is 91% of it. So it just shows. And remember, Nvidia was doing chips for gaming. I think gaming revenue even fell, but they don't care anymore because this is where everything is. Look at their full year revenue, 215 billion. And also, this is part of what made why the investors, well, I'll get to this stock because it didn't really move that much, but their Q1 revenue guidance, and then their fiscal year is 26, so this is just so folks don't think this is an error. That's how their financial year is set up. But this is the present quarter we're in. They guided to 78 billion. So they still believe that they're going to keep making money. And look at their full year profits for 2025. $120 billion. That is after-tax profit. There are only 3 other companies on this plan after-tax profit of $120 billion. Apple, Alphabet, and Microsoft that can actually boast of having after-tax, not revenue, after-tax profit of 120 billion. So, and China is not part of this. They're still saying there's still that friction between the US and China, so they're still not selling their H200 chips to China. Of course, it's Blackwell is the main one now. Rubin is coming up later on, not Dr. Rubin Abati, but the Rubin, R-U-B-I-N, the Rubin chip. That's what's coming up. So yeah, that's so healthy. But look at this. The shares were up 1.4% at the close of trading because they reported after the bell, just up 0.18%. So at this point, the bar is set so high for Nvidia now that the shares, you don't really see that much of a pop after the earnings because the market just keeps demanding more and more of them. So how much further can they go? But Jensen Huang says the demand is there. They're still building out data centers and so on and so forth. To Nigeria, Nestle. And again, see, this is when we talk about the stabilization of the Naira and prices moderating, listen, if you don't want to believe what government is saying, just look at the players in the sector, right? Nestle Nigeria has rebounded after, I think, 2 consecutive years of losses. And they had foreign currency losses of about 290-something billion, if I remember correctly, in 2024. That was completely erased for 2025. So that contributed to their earnings. The revenue of 1.2 trillion for Nestle Nigeria, 26% gain there. Gross profit coming in 42% higher at 436 billion. Their operating profit, 225 billion. Pre-tax profit, 167. Look at this. It was a loss of 222 billion in the prior fiscal year. After-tax profit of 105 billion. Again, look at that. It was a loss in the prior fiscal year. So the FX rates, the prices moderating, able to sell more. Nestle Nigeria rebounding. And then I had to check with Ayo as I came in, because I thought when Ayo brought up the shea export ban that this had been announced, but maybe they were watching you, and because the government has extended the shea nut ban, which was for 6 months now, up until February of 2027, and they're saying it's because they want to support the domestic industry. Because I think the final products, shea nuts, you can use it for margarine, pharmaceutical items, and so on. So I think they're saying, but as Ayo mentioned yesterday, we need a report showing what the impact. Maybe there's not enough time to get a report out, and they need more time. So that's pretty much it.
But now you're delaying. You're causing a lot of chaos in the market. I hear there's no time for chat. Concerning Nestle, what I wanted to say is there's an accommodation going on. They're getting used to the new finance ecosystem. It's not that the first time when it happened, there was a shock. So it's not a reflection as such of what's happening. There's an accommodation. They're getting used to it.
Okay.
I'd like to know how much smuggling happened in the last 6 months of shea nuts.
Okay, Nvidia did much better than expected by the analysts. About $215.9 billion market value, the best stock in the market. And Jensen Huang has been boasting that it shows that AI is not a bubble.
It's not a bubble.
It's a big deal. Markets in Pacific, Asia, and in the US have responded positively. Thank you very much, Rotus.